From the Daily Beast, do I have to say it or does somebody else? Trump's sinister warning of civil war after ICE shooting.
Super excited.
Democrats said the president's comments were sick and deranged. Oh boy. President Donald Trump has warned Democrats that bad things will happen to them if right-wing people decide to retaliate amid growing tensions over this week's deadly shooting at a Texas immigration facility. While investigations into the shooting are still ongoing, the president has made it clear that he believes the radical left is solely responsible for Wednesday's tragedy. I mean, they literally did a press conference and they were like, yep, he was a leftist and he hated Trump. And he said he wanted to strike fear and terror into the hearts of ICE agents so they never know if there's a sniper waiting on the rooftop for him. No law enforcement officers were hurt in the incident, but authorities say the shooting was politically motivated, targeting ICE agents who are central to Trump's deportation strategy. Asked in the Oval Office on Thursday who was to blame, Trump said he did not doubt the radical left is causing the problem. He also name-checked people such as Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who's been critical of ICE's heavy-handed tactics. But despite calls to turn down the temperature in America, the president went even further, warning that things were only going to get worse for one side. Quote, bad things will happen when they play these games. I'll give you a little clue. The right is a lot tougher than the left. They better not get them energized because it won't be good for the left. It'll be a point where other people won't take it anymore, and we don't want that. Now, the funny thing is, Trump didn't say civil war. Daily Beast did. I did not say civil war. Daily Beast did. The fascinating thing is, while for the past several years, people have largely criticized me for covering these articles and talking about this possibility, in the past 2 or 3 years, it has largely been the left warning that a civil war was coming. No joke. Go to Blue Sky or Reddit. And so we did a few segments on this show where I went to Reddit and looked up all the leftist subreddits where they were all saying literally civil war is coming. And I think it's because they knew that Trump was going to win. More importantly, when Trump took a bullet and narrowly survived, everyone on X, left and right, said we were millimeters away from a civil war. Now, with the, I'm going to say it again, 3 terror attacks in 3 weeks, I tweeted this last night. Am I going to go to bed and wake up to news of another terror attack? Like, honestly, it's been insane. Yeah. Waking up and I woke up in the morning and it's like ICE facility shut up. It's just going to keep getting worse because they won't stop. On CNN the other night, Bakari Sellers is basically once again pushing and pushing and pushing. And what I can't understand is why right now, not a single Democrat on any of these shows just says, guys, everybody cool it, stop. Conservatives do it all the time. Mm-hmm. Conservatives beg for it to stop. Mm-hmm. Certainly, don't get me wrong, there are liberals and Democrats who have called for it. However, they tend to be lower in notoriety. I saw a former spokesperson for Biden or whatever on Fox say, yeah, we don't want this. And I'm like, but no one knows who that is. Just no following and no influence.
No, there's not one prominent Democrat that has come out and said, stop attacking law enforcement, let law enforcement do their job, which is the most anodyne, basic thing that you want to hear out of a representative. If you're a Democrat and you actually want to see the temperature turn down and you don't want to see more violence, then you need to come out and say, stop inhibiting law enforcement from doing their job. Stop calling them the Gestapo. Stop telling them that they have to take their masks off, because you know if they take their masks off, what's going to happen is their family is going to be doxxed and their families will be attacked. Stop doing all of the stuff that you're doing that is not saying law enforcement has a job and they are empowered to do it. Just stop doing that, and then I might believe that you actually want the violence to stop. And until then, I don't believe that you want the violence to stop.
No, I gotta interject there. Masks should come off. And I do agree that, they need to tone the rhetoric down, which can include the mask commentary. But I do think the feds should not wear masks. I think if you want to go out proudly in defense of this nation, you must accept those risks. And I do not appreciate, and I certainly understand, I am here every single night with my face on camera. I have been doxxed. I have been swatted numerous times. I've been attacked. I understand. My job doesn't require me to be on the ground in front of these people, but that's something they accept even with masks on, that there is a physical danger that they are experiencing. I think we cannot play a game where we have federal law enforcement being like, the threat of terrorism is so serious, we have to hide ourselves. I think each and every one of these officers engaging in this should take their masks off and say, I am, name You know, John Smith, a proud American, legally and lawfully enforcing the law. You are terrorists, and we won't stand for it. That's it. We should. I'm sorry. I'm not playing this. Federal law enforcement get to hide their faces because they're scared. We know. I get it, and I feel for you because the left are violent psychopaths. But I don't think this is how we should be handling it. I think we should be. We have to be. I don't know. Steadfast, vigilant. And I don't know. Just we have to face this challenge head on.
If we're better than them, real quick, if we think we're better than them, which we are, and we think we are, and we feel a certain way, we should take off. You're right. I like the idea of taking off the mask because we stand for a purpose and a point.
Nope. Everyone's posting ones. You're all wrong. Like I am not going to tolerate. I will not live in a country where cops walk around with no badge numbers and masks on, covering their faces because they're scared. You are operating under color of law. You are entitled to do so. You are protected to do so. And fear of far left terror, I do not believe, is a good enough reason that regular people should have to live with cops walking around in all black.
I mean, I think there has to be some sort of preemptive measures for them. I mean, these are people with families and kids and livelihoods. Like, yes, they're representing the federal government, but I mean, and of course they're scared. But there hasn't been a lot of, preemptive measures to counter this far left terrorism. I mean, we're starting to see it now following the Charlie Kirk's assassination, but these guys are going to want guarantees. Otherwise, I imagine a lot of them will just walk out their jobs if they're told they have to unmask. They're living next to these people. We've seen from the backlash of Charlie Kirk's murder how many people on Blue Sky were just hundreds of thousands of likes calling for deaths of Ben Shapiro, other politicians, political commentators. They want blood, and these people are living next door to them. You don't know who they are.
Okay.
They're so emboldened that it's going to be very difficult to persuade these guys, yeah, let's demask. And then next minute they're getting knocks at the door, their family's being harassed, or they're actually potentially going to be assassinated.
I totally get it. You've got two options: civil war or not. And if the argument is the threat of far-left terror is so pervasive in our hometowns that our own police officers have to hide their identities, you're in a civil war. End of story, no argument. Let me say it again to everyone out there that are telling me, you're telling me that I have to live in a country where any cop anywhere is going to not have a badge number visible. They're going to cover their faces so they can't be doxxed. I don't get to know who they are. You are at war when that is the reality, if that's what you're saying. And I got no problem if that's the reality. And I agree with you then. If you want to say civil war has begun, then I'll say, okay, mask up. Because I understand the argument. Law enforcement may quit. We'll have nobody willing to actually do the job because the far left is going to come for their families. Yeah, you're at war. If you are saying there are insurgent terrorists all across this country that will kill you and your family, you are at war. That's just it.
That's what I think it is. I think that people don't realize, particularly on the right, they don't realize how aggressive and vicious these people really are. I don't think that as a society that we've really stepped back and looked at it, because the media institutions they're encouraging it, right? Like all this dehumanizing language, like calling them the Gestapo. I mean, that's what it's for. It's to dehumanize them to justify violence.
I'm going to ask you guys a quick question. Why does Antifa wear masks?
So no one knows who they are.
And why don't they want anyone to know who they are?
Because they're doing bad things.
But what? But that's not an answer.
Oh, it was an answer, but what they don't want them to know because they're a group. They're like a blob of group of people.
Why does Antifa wear masks?
They wear masks, and the Black Bloc wear masks and stuff, so that way they can blend back into the crowd.
And what does that accomplish for them?
That way they won't get arrested.
Well, they will get arrested.
They're anonymous.
A cop can grab anybody off the street and arrest them regardless of what they're wearing. The purpose of wearing a mask is so that you can't take pictures of their face, you can't share their information online, and if they get caught, you can't prosecute them because you can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt. We are asking for that same thing with our law enforcement as well. And if you want to acknowledge that we are saying we want our law enforcement to be able to go out, you can't figure out who they are. You can't take pictures of their face. Anything that happens in the fray, we won't be able to pinpoint which officer necessarily because just like Antifa, we have created a large group of individuals that are wearing the exact same clothes and you can't see their face. This means that if one of these guys in a conflict with the far left cracks a skull or whatever, they can't do anything legally about it. If that's the argument you're going to make, we are in a civil war, period.
Well, the big thing with ICE that we're all missing here is that the reason they have to mask primarily is because they're dealing with drug bust and the cartel. And like that's a massive infrastructure, especially in the Southwest United States. And they've been masking for like 10 years now. And it's primarily because, okay, yes, there is a factor with the far left where they dox these guys, but the ICE is in a completely different battlefield from the rest of, like, I guess you would say the right wing, is because ICE is having to deal with the cartel. They're having to deal with these drug busts and busting up these human trafficking, routes and these sorts of things. So it's like, it's not the far left they're worried about. Like, if you talk to these ICE agents, typically it's the cartels and the retribution from those guys is what they're typically worried about.
I get it. I agree. I respect that argument for sure.
I mean,
but again, I'm going to say this bottom line. If y'all want to say we're at war, then war powers. And what does that mean? Guys, if you're arguing that that our federal law enforcement should be able to wear masks because of wartime conditions, I'm actually going to push you one further and say you are not giving our men and women enough. If the argument is the threat of the far left terror is so great against their families, we got to step it up. Well, I mean, not just masks. They got to get more.
But
they need selective fire rifles. They need full military everything.
They already have select fire rifles. But the point
not
is,
the cops, not the beat cops.
Well, yeah, okay. So they usually have a rifle in their car. They don't carry them on there. But the point is, so you're talking about ICE that's trying to carry out these they're trying to wrap up the illegal.
Well, I was talking specifically about all federal law enforcement. I think a lot of people are taking that to assume just the ICE. I'm saying,
well, generally ICE is are the ones that are wearing the masks and stuff, right? So you don't see a lot of we do. And that's what people are complaining about, right?
The general argument is that police shouldn't be wearing masks.
So, okay, fine.
I'm saying that I don't want to live where police, like I mentioned, local cops wearing masks.
Okay, fine. But so the federal law enforcement are wearing masks, right? And you say you don't want that. What that requires, right? You're saying if they have to wear masks, that means that the violence and the problems are too great to be considered normal. But that means that the local police who have jurisdiction to go out and pick up the people that might actually attack the federal law enforcement, they're not doing it because the sanctuary cities are saying, no, we won't have these people do these things because we won't, and the local municipalities won't do it. So the problem is the federal government needs to get the local municipalities and stuff to actually do their job.
Well, so let me ask you a question. When there is let's just say like a jurisdiction, for lack of a better word, that is not required to abide by the laws of a separate jurisdiction. It largely says you don't have anything to do with us. There's two separate locations. When jurisdiction B sends armed men into jurisdiction A to enforce laws that jurisdiction A says we do not abide by, what do you call that?
When they send people into
there are two isolated jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Two isolated jurisdictions with separate laws. Mm-hmm. Different worldviews, different rules. One city decides to arm a bunch of guys and send them into the other side by force against their will to enforce laws that the other city wants enforced.
So you're pointing at civil war.
You're looking for
I'm not talking about civil war. I'm talking about it's war. It's just period war. Fine. If the argument is that California won't abide by federal law, has ordered their people to defy federal law, is allowing individuals to defy federal law, they are not part of this country as it is. Part of this country means that your structures, state, city, local, or otherwise, are going to abide by legal supremacy in this country up to the Constitution. What we are seeing right now, if this is the argument, is that blue states have just said absolutely not. And when Trump said, this is our election happened, people said immigration, we're going to go and start rounding people up. What happened? At the governmental level, Gavin Newsom fought the federal law enforcement, ordering the National Guard not to listen to Donald Trump under his orders, which he's allowed to do because they're not enforcing the law. If our ICE agents, let's isolate it to ICE, are at a point where they're facing a threat from terrorists that have support from Democrat politicians who help fundraise for them, NGOs run by prominent Democrat donors, and in California, Gavin Newsom and local law enforcement lets these people attack federal facilities. I would call that akin to piracy, right? And at that point, I think it's very obvious when you break it down that way, we are in a civil war.
Yeah, I just think if you look from Trump's perspective, right, he's tried to de-escalate this Charlie Kirk situation. There hasn't been like hard rhetoric, get retribution. And like in that article you were talking about, he didn't mention civil war. He was just warning, like, from a very logical position. If you keep attacking the right, eventually they're going to go, are we supposed to just sit and take it, or are we going to retaliate? That's kind of what he was saying there. He wasn't saying it from like a Republican position. So if you're Trump, you tell them to demask, which I believe that all federal employees, particularly law enforcement, there should be that accountability. Your face should be out there in an ideal world. But let's say they do demask.
Not at war.
Yeah, we know that there's going to be some sort of physical retribution, attacks on these people. That's only going to escalate the situation, right, to something that is going to be more kinetic, that potentially is going to be far more divisive. I don't think he wants to be the president that is dealing with that on his plate. He wants to just get his policies done in the way which is most amicable as possible. They obviously don't want that, which is why we're in this situation now. But
I give you two options then. Stop pussyfooting around and go and arrest all of them. Don't give me this excuse, I'm scared I have to wear a mask. Send the law enforcement to kick the doors into the far left people that are threatening you and put them in prison, then take your mask off.
Agreed, 100%.
I'm sick of this half measure.
I don't think that they have the ability to isolate the people that are actually making that are likely to do like the doxing and stuff like that. I think it's part of the problem.
I don't care. The doxing is annoying. But at the same time, it is the individuals who carry out the violence that are the real problem. Getting doxed is bad. We've been doxed, and it's crazy what people are capable of. But the guy who posts my address is a problem. The guy who comes here to carry out the threat is the threat.
But it's not a unitary, organized like attack. Like, so, like, you look at the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk. I don't think there were, as far as we're aware, there weren't big indications that this was a guy who was militarized and violent and ready to assassinate. And if it was, it seems from the evidence that I've seen, it seems like it was something that was almost like a spur of the moment. He hit a psychological breaking point and decided to do that. They're more akin to random acts of violence. It's not like a big, organized, premeditated, right, we're going to get that guy, we're going to get that. So it's much harder to tackle.
Yes, I get it. If your argument is any one of these individuals walking down the street at any moment might turn around and stab you, then it's time for Trump to dissolve the U.S. Constitution under Presidential Directive 51, create an enduring constitutional government under a single branch, as George W. Bush's executive order in 2007 granted the executive branch power to do, and then he can send out his masked, militarized police force across the country to make sure this doesn't happen. But the argument that we are at a point where a random individual might pull out a gun and shoot you at any moment, if that is the case, it is worse than anyone realizes. We are in an active civil war, and instead of half-assing it and being like, just keep doing your job but hide in the meantime, that's insane.
How do you fight an idea? How do you fight an idea like it's not a organized structure?
Yeah, Trump dissolves the United States and creates the first American empire. And then he creates a massive multi-billion-dollar federal police force that supersedes all of the local governments and then starts searching people's homes. And I mean, what is the argument to, at any moment, a random liberal might detonate a bomb or shoot somebody?
It's almost like a denazification program at that point. You'd have to go in and you'd have to gut the institutions. It would be a complete, like you said, like it'd be a transformative measure. I don't think he's got the appetite for that.
Let's just try and do the math. Three terror attacks in 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
It was mainstream liberal ideology that was behind the murder of Charlie Kirk.
Right.
So I agree with your point. I think you are correct. We don't know who's been radicalized. It could be too many people, and even AOC is espousing the ideology that this guy shared that motivated him on the House floor. Okay, let's try denazification. Mm-hmm. So how do we figure out who holds the ideology and is needing of a re-education?
Well, I mean, we're going to follow the donors. We're going to see like the top-down media who.
Well, this was a random guy at home, like you mentioned. It is a random.
Yeah,
people,
but I mean,
right?
you can look at the media he was consuming, right? You can see the groups that he's in, the ideologies he's identifying with.
Right. So my question is, how do you find him before he kills Charlie Kirk?
That's almost like, how do you stop a guy if it's almost like a thought crime before they've done it?
Agreed. You can't. Which is why I said the solution to the problem you're describing is Trump dissolving the three branches of government under Presidential Directive 51, creating an enduring constitutional government as prescribed by National Security Presidential Directive 51. And then he creates a federalized police force, which goes and secures every street corner, because we don't know at what point a liberal is going to just go start foaming at the mouth, pull out a gun and shoot a random person. Now, I don't think we can live that way, and I don't think anyone would tolerate that. So the idea is, right now, where are we? Law enforcement can't do their job because the threat of left-wing terror is too great. Okay, well, we're losing then. Mm-hmm. We are losing if that's the case. I don't want to lose. There's no such thing as we're going to knock on doors and ask people if they're radicalized and then bring them to a re-education center.
Yeah.
There's no way we're going to find some random dude who's on Discord who one day decided to take his grandfather's gun and go assassinate Charlie Kirk, because they're just people walking around. If the radicalization is that bad, then the only answer is full-blown, full-scale American empire. Like, Trump has to go iron fist on the table right now before it actually comes to multi-faction war across the United States.
I would argue even Trump's base doesn't have the appetite for that.
Then we lose. Then we lost.
Yeah, I mean,
like, this is the point I'm making. To everybody who's like, no, law enforcement should wear masks. If your argument is we need our law enforcement to mask up because they fear that the left will attack them and will go after their families, we've lost. Like, what we're describing is we are a diminished capacity force with scared federal law enforcement that are concerned that the might of leftist terror would overwhelm them and they won't be able to do their jobs, so they have to hide themselves. The reason why Antifa wear masks is because there is a more powerful state that can crush them, and they're trying to hide from it. But when communists take power, they put on uniforms. If the argument is our men in uniform have to hide, we are losing.
I mean, I know in the UK, for example, they would do this almost harassments of dissidents, where before people could commit a crime, and the UK has got a huge amount of sort of these human rights problems, but one of the things that they did do fairly well, which has curbed radicalism, is when they see people expressing these ideological tendencies, they will get these knocks on the door. And the idea is that you're being watched, you're going to be less emboldened to go do something. But I fully disagree with that, because it can be massively abused. When you look at it from a civil liberties point of view, there is no easy answer here. You're in a society that is so polarized now, with such a lust for political violence on one side, and then the other side is kind of going, well, look, no cities burnt down when Charlie Kirk was killed. It's like, yeah, that's a great virtue, but when the other side literally wants you dead, what is the solution? What can Trump realistically do? And what is the average Republican voter actually going to do themselves to try and negate that fact? It's a very difficult question.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.